In association with Get a Tax Rebate, 1895 Sports, Mesa Vienna Aesthetics, CDX Security.
Okay, welcome to another episode of the Oddball Woody Show, where we've got a great guest today, and it's I'm sure you'll have heard me say it before. I'm passionate about this subject. It's talking about mindset and when building resilience and when we're going through struggles. And this guy's perfect for it because he's got some great stories, not just from his rugby career, but from his personal life and also about what he's doing now. He's sort of like a Richard Branson of rugby league. He's got more fingers in more pies and I don't know what. But it'll be really interesting to speak to him. And last week's guest, Keith Senior, mentioned him on the podcast, so we can get a little perspective of Luke's as well. So it's Luke Ambler. How are you doing, Luke?
Hey mate, thanks for having me on. I don't know about Richard Branson just yet, but I'll take that. Yeah, there's plenty of stories about Keith.
We'll get a little bit more. We'll get a little bit more out you. But just for people who are watching as well on YouTube, because we do have people on YouTube, we've got the new Oddball Woody t-shirts. So just demonstrating that if you're watching on YouTube, if you're on the podcast, then go on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter and have a look at the t-shirts. I'll be giving a few away, and I'll be putting some questions over social media to give those away. But back to you, Luke. What have you been up to, mate, this week? Because I like finding out what people are up to recently with everything what's going on, and how's work, business, family life, personal life.
Probably of all the weeks coming on a podcast, it'd be the best week. A lot of weeks it's been same old, hasn't it? But this week's sort of been the most normal week of lockdown for me. I say normal. It started off last Friday doing the 4-4-48. The David Goggins 4 miles every 4 hours, 40 hours, which were unbelievable. Surprisingly, I don't know if it's just with how much I've been training, but I didn't find it that bad actually.
Mate, I'll just interrupt you there because Jamie Peacock was on a couple of weeks ago and he said exactly the same thing. He said he didn't find it that challenging. I think there's an element of, I think rugby players just get on with it, don't they?
Yeah.
And they just do it. I know Richie Mathers has had a whinge about it on social media, but he's a fullback, so.
Yeah, no, it were actually not that bad. And the times, like my last run, I think I'd done, and I'm still put 17 stone, I'd done 4 mile in 28 minutes, which is obviously decent pace. So I love me running. I think mindset-wise, there's probably not much stuff better for you than running because you have questions all the time. You question yourself all the time, don't you? About whether I should stop now, whether I should slow down. It's getting a bit tough. And just those little battles, I think, help you win the war, don't they? So I went from that straight into work Monday, obviously. Big team meeting at AMC. We've just got 7 full-time staff now. And they were all down. One guy had come down from Scotland. So we had a big team meeting and I went over to do my first 3 talks that I've done in a while in person. So obviously that were interesting, going into a business. We've done other stuff in person, but like it's the first time back in a business and it was back to back. Obviously coming off the weekend where I'd had, pissing 3 hours sleep in 48 hours, it were interesting going straight into that. And then I've just been at a prison last night. I drove down at HMP Woodhill to deliver a lot of BU journals and meet the guys down there. And then over at CAMS today, and then also in a primary school yesterday, delivering some workshops. So it's been a proper full-on week. And then rounding up today with your good self. So, it's been one of them weeks where it just seems to be back to back to back.
Yeah, and follow you on your social media and stuff. And, you were always busy. And that's why, said, the Richard Branson of Rugby League. But you're not scared of trying new things and you're setting things up. And I'll just, for people who are listening, you said AMC earlier, which is the Handyman's Club, which you're the founder of, which we'll go into some of the backstory about that later. But we always start off from the beginning and just finding out a little bit about you, really, Luke, and where you grew up and, what were your interests growing up? Who were your inspirations?
Yeah, my dad's played a big part in my life. I think it has in a lot of rugby players' lives often, doesn't it? You've got a good role model there and my mum. But I suppose my story might be slightly different, might be similar to some people's. I guess there's one unique difference. So my parents separated when I was 8, which is very common, parent separation. But my dad won custody, which going back 20 years ago were obviously not very common for a guy to win custody of 2 young boys, but he did. And then my mum had a life-changing car crash, which left her with a very rare mental illness. Long before, there were all these campaigns around mental health, even before I'd done any of my mental health stuff. This is going back when there were real stigmas. And I'm not saying there's not real stigmas now. I'm on about the stuff my mum probably endured, or what she'd gone through. So my mum has a rare condition called NEAD, so non-epileptic attack disorder, which basically means she just drops, she falls. At one point she went up to 5 falls a day, so she could have teeth missing, broken jaw, broken cheekbone. So mum's not allowed to live in a house, she's got to live in a bungalow. And she lives in a little disabled bungalow, and even now she still lives there. Because every time she fell downstairs, obviously a good chance she could die. She's not allowed a bath, because when she falls in bath, there's a good chance she could drown. And my mum's not allowed carpets in her house, because the carpet usually rips the skin off her hands and face. So that was quite difficult, because I know we'll get to rugby later on, but I was real passionate playing for Ireland. I know Ireland's not, a big thing in rugby league, really. And I'm not talking it down. It's just in the context, you don't get massive players playing for Ireland. But I was passionate because my mum's Irish, and it meant a lot to her and my nanny and granddad. So my mum, though, with that life and soul at party, and when she had that car crash, obviously, some of that were ripped out of her, which were difficult, real difficult, which probably, with the whole thing that was going on, probably where my own mental health journey started. With some of that I think I've just finally this last lockdown finally got a grip on, which is probably comfort eating. And I know a lot of people have different stuff. Some people drink, some people do cocaine, some people sleep around, gamble, compulsive shopping. Everyone's got their own little things. Mine's probably always been eating. But I think this last lockdown, with this rigid 75 hard challenge I've been on, I've just managed to nail it. So, but when I was a kid, I reckon comfort eating were a big thing, with the relationship breakdown, getting shit at school, and then added to that the stuff I went through with my mum, which were quite rare. My mum, when people talk about anxiety, my mum's anxiety was that bad that she didn't leave her house for 4 years. Not once. She became what you call a recluse. And depression obviously being that bad that she was suicidal. So, and this is long before all the nice campaigns that are out there and encouraging people to talk. She got passed from pillar to post. So that were my early stories in terms of the negative side. But then I found rugby as a kid, and that was probably because one of my inspirations, my old man, got me into that. And that was a good escape for me. That was just a place where, you're a fat kid at school, but you're a big kid at rugby, aren't you? Big kid at rugby scores all tries. So that was a good thing for me, rugby at that time. So yeah, I'd say that was my old man I've obviously got so much admiration for my mum, how compassionate she is after all she's been through. Talk about resilience. She's just always been so loving. I get different things from both my mum and dad, very different things. My dad's very resilient in a sense of getting on with it. My mum's resilient in terms of compassion. They both show compassion in different ways. My dad's old school. My mum's very, she's very compassionate.
Yeah. How do you think? Do you think it affected you seeing? I mean, that same here. I mean, come from a broken home, I call it a broken home. Mum and dad separated when I was about 6 years of age. Think that moulded how you behaved as a kid?
Yeah, 100%. Positively and negatively. I think when I was younger, we were talking before about how things shape you, rugby and things like that. I think there was some stuff that definitely got instilled that were really good, but there are also some stuff that got instilled that were quite negative. I was oversensitive. I was what you'd call a natural born worrier. Some people say, so really I was a very anxious kid. Where I'm completely different now. Like if anyone spent 10 minutes, even some of my old friends who I played rugby with, they're like, oh, you're a worrier, aren't you? Where now we spend a lot of time with me, and it's just, I'm like a different person. Probably from all the stuff that, I practice now. But that definitely shaped me for a number of years. I think every experience shapes you in some form, doesn't it? Whether it be positively or negatively. Ultimately, I think that you learn and grow from your toughest experiences, though, don't you? You had a great career, didn't you? And I imagine you'll have learnt more from the losses and the shit that happened playing than you did the actual wins. I think they teach you more, don't they?
Yeah, 100%, mate. It's I use that phrase now that you never lose, you either win or you learn. And there's always a lesson to be learnt in a loss, and there's always a lesson to be learnt in a win as well. And it's talking about those qualities that shape us when we're younger. I think I think for me personally, coming away from a rugby environment, some of those qualities were great in that environment, but then you start finding when you come away from it, they're not actually, they're not the qualities what are going to get you to the top.
Oh, 100%. And that's, I think for me, leaving rugby, I never had a struggle leaving rugby. I think already, I think with rugby, you either struggle with it or you're completely comfortable with it. And I think it depends where you're at in your life in terms of your own mindset, with whether you're ready to grow or you're ready to still be in that changing room, having that. And there's a lot of things that people say they miss the banter, don't they? Like, it might sound, I don't miss it at all. Like, weirdly. and it sounds bad because most players I speak to, where it's one of those common things that you say, after a game we say it's all about, people say it's all about the lads, not about me. Stuff become quite common theme, don't they? And I think for me, I've never missed it. Not one. Obviously, there's elements of stuff that you're missing there. Like being in a relationship, you break up with a partner. There's parts of that partner that you miss, and there's parts of that partner that you're glad you got rid of. And that probably with rugby, I don't know about yourself. I imagine there's some stuff like freedom in essence. When you play rugby, you're tied to 6 weeks a year that you can do anything. And it's not really 6 weeks because you've got a pre-season yourself. You have a little bit of a blowout, and then by the time you know it, you're back, aren't you? During year, it puts so much pressure on your family, stuff you can and can't do. Where I think I got a taste of freedom. I had a bit of a break in the middle of a season. I got 2 weeks off, and I went to Lake District, and I was like, shit, this is the best thing I've ever done. And I never looked back. Honestly, like, leaving rugby for me were the best thing I'd done at that time. It's a weird one. It's often hard. I feel a bit guilty talking to rugby players about it sometimes. I had an RLK guys in here who were just trying to meet ex-players and finding out their experience about it. And I had not one negative thing to say, and he said it worked first time because usually he meets people, there's a lot of anger about where the game treat them and all this stuff where, don't get me wrong, mate, like when I was at Leeds and getting let go in the context, I felt like I got let go. I held anger for a number of years, but I think there comes a point in your life where you either let pain or anger, and resentment use you, or you use that to kick on. And I think that the people who kick on in life, in my opinion, are ones who don't let the past hold them. Whether it be from when you're a kid, like, would I go back and someone having that car crash? Would I go back and other stuff we're going to go on about Leeds letting me go, Andy dying? Of course, I'd go back and change it all. But every single thing has led to exactly where we are today. And I'm very content. But obviously, I would change every single one of those things for those people. But at the same time, I know that I can't change them. So I accept them and try to get the best out of them.
Yeah, it's quite a spiritual way of looking at things, though. You use that word accept, really. And, how often we say it quite a lot on this podcast as well, but controlling the controllables, unfortunately, we can't control those situations and we have to accept them for what they are. But, what do we take away from those experiences? How do they mould us as people? How do they shape our future? And, how can we make things better? And, you said some great things there. I couldn't put it better myself, really, in terms of the rugby, leaving the rugby. I'm very much similar. I mean, the aspect that I've come to the conclusion that I've missed now is how in control I felt in that environment. So with being in a rugby environment for 20 years, I always felt in control in that environment. But when I left, and I left on my own accord, I was coaching at Lee and I just felt that rugby was not my future anymore. And I literally bought a van and I went out working in construction. And I was really happy. You talked about that freedom. I was like, how good is this? Monday to Friday, I can do what I want at weekends, spend time with my family. And it was great, but I just didn't feel in control because I'd no training in that area. You know what I mean? I always felt a little bit out of control. So I think for me is JP said something on the podcast the other week, and it might not sound like much, but he said that Phil Clark gave him some advice, and he said, you just don't know what you're going to be good at when you finish playing rugby. And it was just really poignant for me because I've tried that many different things. I'm like, I go from one thing to another, and I'm trying things, but I just don't know what I'm good at. And I feel like I have actually found something that I'm destined to do. So now I'm doing my counselling course, and I feel that is my path, and I actually feel content around doing that. And I think once we come away from the sport, it's just finding and having the bottle just to go round and see what we're doing and what we're good at.
Yeah, and there'll be people watching this who have never played in a rugby environment, and they may be in a job that they feel a bit stuck in. And I watched a programme, I don't watch much TV, but I watched a programme on Netflix called Last Chance You. Loved it. And there were a piece of advice in there that I thought was one of the best pieces of advice I've ever heard. And it's not ultra motivational. It's not about going and chasing your dreams. It were about a dad who was talking about his kid, whether he makes it in NFL or not. He won't obviously, but if he doesn't, I want him to go and deal cards in Vegas. I want him to go sell coconuts on beach in Florida. I want him to go be a lifeguard over in California. He's like, I want him to go and try everything, because we're living in a day and age where you don't have to go straight into a factory, or you don't have to go straight away and get a job where you're going to work for 40 years, retire and die. Like, you can literally now, like you've just said, you've left rugby within the last 5 years, and you've tried 4 or 5 things already, and now it's taken you 4 or 5 years, or even a little bit less, to find the thing that you feel most passionate about. So people always say, it's easy to say about quitting your job or chasing something, but it's a lot easier. Just there's a lot of fear that holds us back. Fear of and what you're talking about there about being on building site, not having that training. I think a lot of people feel like imposter syndrome, especially when you go into an environment that you've got no experience, surrounded by people who've got nothing but experience. But I believe, and I have this with prison officers. I work a lot in prisons, and they always get worried about leaving prison service. But I'm like, every area that you work in, or every area that you've got an experience in, that has give you something to your character and your virtual CV. I'm not on about if you write down whether you got pissing A's or B's in GCSEs 20, 30 years ago or 10 years ago. What about whether you're an admin assistant now, there's something in that sector that you've learned that you can there's always transferable skills. I think people just put limits on themselves. A bit like the elephant at a circus. Have you heard about the elephant at a circus?
Tied up in the circus, yeah. It's a good analogy. If you want to explain that.
Yeah, it's just a real simple one, isn't it? That when an elephant, when you go to a circus, probably not now because of animal cruelty, but you used to see it just with the stick, didn't you? And at any point it could rip that down, rip the whole building down, but it don't, because it's conditioned from a young age that stick. And the little stick they put it in, it can't actually move at that point, so it just believes it can stop trying. And I think that's what a lot of us do. I think the best thing that happened with me in rugby is seeing Malcolm Alker and Robbie Paul when they were 2 players when I was at Salford who were the best. Malcolm Ron, who was captain at club on huge money. Robbie Paul were exactly the same. Robbie Paul, he just dropped down and Robbie was starting a marketing degree. And they won't know that this is how I fought at 17 years old. And I remember Malcolm Alker just started a building course. And I remember going at 17 years old into full-time training and being like, why did they go to uni? And someone after rugby, it's Robbie Paul. It's Malcolm Alker. They just retire. What? No, how rugby works. And I'm like, what? And then when I saw Malk going down that route and Robbie going down that route, I always did something alongside rugby, maybe to the detriment of rugby. But there were always something, whether it be college course, a business course, a uni degree, a business. There were always a business in background. I always got pissed up for selling something out of the back of a car. But it's how I've always been. From being a lot younger than rugby as well, but I thought that I need to have something here just in case this all goes wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer because I were exactly the same, and I'll not go through all my qualifications because I seem to do it every week, but I studied every year in my rugby career, but I'm a big believer in experience. I believe you can get as many qualifications as you want, but if you've not experienced the real world working environment in that industry, you just won't know whether you'll enjoy it or not. I mean, I went to uni and did my master's degree in sports science, thinking that, I'll naturally just fall into rugby league. Went doing the S&C for 3 years at Lee and just thought, why did I do that? Why did I do a master's degree in sports science? But I was listening to other people thinking that was the natural progression from rugby. I needed to stay in sport, and I should have had a little bit more of a think about what I wanted to do outside of rugby, really. Like I say, I did some construction qualifications, and I went to the uni, I did it all, but the experience is such a big part of what we need to do.
I guess for you though, now there is no what if, so is there? So
No.
you went, and you probably learned a lot doing your masters and what you're capable of by being able to go and do something like that level.
Yeah, 100%, mate. And that's the thing. I don't regret any of it. But if I was to have my time again, I think what I would have done is I would have studied in this like psychology counselling area more, because I really enjoy it, and I always have. But in the back of my mind, I've always listened to other people's opinions, and taking them on board sometimes is not the best thing to do. It's, you know, I need to trust myself a little bit more, that head-heart connection sort of thing. But just going back to your rugby days there, Luke, as well, tell us a little bit about how you got signed for Salford as a young kid. Was that your dream and your aspiration to play rugby league professionally?
Do you know, I'm thinking about this recently. This last lockdown, I've done so much reflecting, and for me, I remember watching, weirdly, probably one of your good mates, actually. I remember seeing the name Westwood on the back of this shirt. I don't know why it stuck in my mind, that, but he did when I was a kid. It said Westwood, and I was like, I'd love to see Ambler on the back of a shirt. And that was probably my goal, right? When I look back, it was never more than that. And that was probably something that I've thought about a lot lately, because it's with business now, you're always reassessing. I think with rugby, it were, yeah, you know, when people started showing some interest, it was like, oh, it'd be good to play pro, get as far as I can, whatever. And I went to academy at Salford, and you know, quickly became, you know, you know how it works. If you're what they class as one of the better players, they put you on slightly higher money in 18s, and then year after you quickly playing 21s, and then before you know it, you're training with the first team. And that happened within 18 months. Played like a game at Salford, and then for me, what might come as a shock is I left Salford because the culture wasn't right for me at 17, which is absolutely bonkers. I don't need to tell you what rugby cultures are like, and we probably don't need to go into what lads do. But it sounds crazy, but that's why I left Salford. Because for me, as a man at that age, I didn't see any difference between what the Salford lads are doing and my mates are still doing out on street corner who want professional players. I didn't see any difference at all. If all Salford lads were probably going a little bit harder than my friends was at home, partying, and I thought
that's quite grown up for a 17-year-old.
Yeah,
because
massively.
If I was to put that into perspective for me, when I went to Warrington and Alfie Langer were there and Tuera Nico coming towards back end of their career, that environment, I thrived in it. So yeah. I stayed. So you're a bit smarter than me.
Yeah, we're probably. You know, it's probably a bit nerdy, just because. Listen, I've done a lot of reflecting on what drives us, pain and pleasure, and I look back and, you know, I've got an uncle who lived with me, who lived with us all. Me and my dad were all just talking about this the other day. It's why it's really relevant. I had an uncle who were struggling at one point and moved in with us when we were kids, and my dad said, your Uncle Jay became like your second dad, because obviously I were working a lot, your mum were working, so he just stepped in and he lived with us. And then got to a point where, like, my dad had to, he got a bit older, my dad had to say, like, you know, I need you to move out now. We were sort of causing tensions with my dad and old lady at the time. So my Uncle Jay moved out, and he went down the wrong path and became an heroin addict. And that's obviously a big thing for my dad. It really affected him. Only recently we're talking about it. So it's probably the reason why I've never done a drug ever in my life. And I used to think to myself, being a rugby lad, and I won't go into teams, but like, you're talking one or two players in a team that maybe didn't do it at some places, which is very rare, and it's proper nerdy really for a lot of people. But I'm also not a big drinker, probably because coming from an Irish background, seeing the negative side of the drink. So don't get me wrong, I've had drinks, I've had mad nights, I've done some stupid stuff, but it's just never been a big thing for me, which is probably why I don't miss the crack. Because a lot of main crack happens on nights out. But I didn't really go on many nights out. Probably just when I look back now, I used to think, why don't you really want to go out? You know, why what is it? And when I look back, I read a book recently, and it was talking about this thing called pain and pleasure and what drives us. I'd seen what drugs does to a man. And you're talking about a guy who was apple of my eye, who, like, literally I idolised. He was biggest, strongest, hardest man that I knew growing up. Like, there was just no one who'd mess with this guy. And then he turned into a frail guy who I'd go visit in Armley, teeth dropping out, like heroin addict, Halifax's most notorious thief. Just and that all happened in like an 18-month period. So probably for me, it was just like, I'm never going to go down that route. So that's actually why I ended up, probably leaving Salford. There were a lot of things that I just thought probably not right. So yeah, very, very. But I reckon I grew up quite quick. Anyway, obviously, being like a carer for my mum and helping out there, you do learn, you do grow up quite quick. It creates unique relationships with people, because as much as you'll know in rugby, there's people knew Woody, but not many people will have known Paul, would they? Like, even in that environment, you played with people 20 years. So some lads have an opinion of me, but they never actually got to know me, and I probably never got to know them. Some lads would never know that about my mum. Keith does, obviously, because we live together. But there'd be a lot of people that wouldn't know a lot of backstory, because you don't choose to tell them in that rugby environment, do you?
100%, mate. The banter, I mean, we're calling it banter, but some of the changing room comments, they get quite personal, and it goes further than banter, doesn't it? It's very, very borderline abuse, really, in some of the comments that can come out of people's mouths. And I'm on your wavelength there. That side of it, I don't miss. I don't miss going in every day and seeing the lads. That's not something I miss. But like, as I said earlier, it's that control element where I felt like I'm actually all right at this. People seem to respect me, and they seem to, value my opinion, and they ask me advice and stuff like that. But once I've stepped away from rugby, all that changed, and I'm like, shit, I'm a fish out of water here. So going back to the banter, it's that side of it I don't miss.
It's interesting because what you said only changed in your head, didn't it? So like, you were still the experienced man who played 20 years of rugby, led teams, been a senior player in all these teams, won games, won finals, done a lot of stuff. But you maybe at that point didn't believe that you could transfer it over, where really probably now you're starting to see, actually, I've learned a lot of stuff, good and bad, that I can now bring over into counselling. You're going to do the knowledge side of counselling now, but your experience you're going to be taking it away. Will be second to none, won't it? You've got the passion, you've got the stories yourself, so people will better relate to you, or you counsel. So, but I think that's what I find crazy with rugby players, because you'll see rugby players, like, say, on Instagram, they'll have a shirt off, they'll be ripped up, they're living their life, they've got a nice car. And even when I was there, like, you get lads doing this, but then as soon as they go into an environment that's not that, the ego side, or the confidence suddenly just quickly deteriorates, doesn't it? But I think where players probably don't utilise, or people anyway, they don't realise that, like, going and speaking to sponsors, going and doing media work, all these things are just transferable assets that you take to your next arena, whether you become a builder, or you become a salesman, or you become a public speaker, or a trainer, or a leader of your organisation. It's just all very similar stuff. That's how I've always thought it anyway.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of, there's a business which, I subscribed to. It was a number of years ago, and I still get emails off them now. And there's specific companies who are just looking for sports people, and it's called Life After Professional Sport. It's LAPS. And they still send emails now, but those companies that they send emails about are saying they're looking for a professional athlete that they want to train up in this industry, because they recognise the qualities that are coming from professional athletes. Because I don't care what, I always say this, is it doesn't matter where you get to the top of, whether that's accounting, whether that's being a warehouse manager, being an engineer, professional rugby player, darts player, there's a level of professionalism and detail that needs to go into that, and hard work and sacrifice that you can transfer into anything else.
100%, I couldn't agree more. There's so many skills that you're constantly learning, but I think we forget about them. I think we just think, oh, that's only relevant to rugby, or that's only relevant to engineering, or being a truck driver, or whatever it is, rather than thinking, what can I take from this and bring over to something else?
Yeah, no, 100%, mate. I completely agree. And, there's, I think with the rugby side of it, going back to the rugby side of it as well, I still think there's an element where some players or as well, some of the spectators as well, just see rugby as two big lads running into each other and there's no thought process into it. And it's funny, really, because when you explain how the game's actually, if you sit down with someone and watch rugby league and you explain to them what the tactics are, they go, oh, never thought about that. What, you go into that much detail with a rugby league match to try and win that game? I just thought you got a ball and run as hard as you can. It's like, no, mate, you sit in front of computers for like 3 or 4 hours a week. You're doing video reviews, you're doing your nutrition, you know, you're monitoring every single aspect of your life. And then you transfer that onto 80 minutes onto a field.
Yeah, like you said, there's just so much in there, even from GPS to heart rate. There's so much that goes into that, and your recovery, previews, reviews. There's just, and probably like you, rugby players, the dreaded, when you've had a bad game, the dreaded Tuesday review. It just seems to take forever to get to that day, doesn't it?
Yeah, if you have a bad game, like the video sessions, like if you've got to wait 2 or 3 days to a video session, it's the worst 3 days of your life. But that's a good thing as well with rugby, is that if you do have a bad game, sometimes you've got to wait like 5 to 7 days to put it right, which is, you know, you can go from hero to zero, but you can quite quickly go from zero to hero within space of a couple of days. What was your highlight of your rugby career, Luke? What would you say was your highlight? You've touched on playing for Ireland.
Yeah, I think there were probably 2 or 3. One would be obviously playing for Leeds. When I look back now again, at the time I probably didn't think of it like that, but I look back now, I probably got to Leeds, and as cheeky as I was, and I talked a lot of shit when I was there. I probably never reset a goal. I were like, I played like 10 games for Leeds. I think I was quite lucky that 7 of them were on Sky. I'm from Halifax, small town. Like it was just like boom. Oh, he plays for Leeds, and he was like I might not have played for 4 weeks, but every game I played were on Sky, so I just looked like a regular. But I think after that year, it were like, the highlight were probably making that debut against Wigan, and then weirdly playing in World Cup for Ireland. I'd got dropped one game and I had a real bad time off field, which we might go into there. Just an awful time mentally. And then I played in this World Cup, played against England, and I got like our team's man at match. We got beat 70-0, so it's not very. I didn't play very good, but it just gave me a little bit of confidence, which drives me then for some stuff that I did later on in life. That whole World Cup were nothing to do with rugby. What it taught me were more about like after rugby, weirdly. And then I went and played for Halifax, which obviously for me, being an Halifax lad, it were always I always enjoyed playing for Halifax. It were always weirdly, it were always the ultimate goal. It just came 10 years before I thought it would, but it ultimately was always I'd love to play for Halifax. It was just a thing, and probably because I put that into university, it just came around and hit me in the face a little bit sooner.
Yeah, what was it mentally you were struggling with then at that World Cup?
Getting let go from Leeds. It were completely out of my control. There were no even chance, and I just felt that I felt I'd been hard done to a bit. I didn't feel like I'd been given a chance to even show myself. And then when I got offered to go to Huddersfield and play full time, Nathan Brown had run me, really wanted me to go. He'd said that there were a couple of things that he was going to change, and he thought I could. At that time when Nathan Brown were going and playing like a voodoo with people, they were taking like Danny Kerman from wing, making him best second right league. Do you remember? Yeah. And he rang me, listen, there's 2 things I'm going to change in your game, and I think you're going to be a top Super League player. And I was like, right, I'm coming. And Leeds just didn't let me go, and it turned out there was some politics, like I don't know, Darryl Griffin wanted to go to Saints for free, and then Huddersfield charged Leeds for him. So Gary reckoned he never got called off Huddersfield. They were telling me they were ringing all the time. Gary wouldn't do it. Anyway, weirdly enough, they couldn't make a decision about me going to Huddersfield, but then Halifax ran week after, and they could make a decision. I never went back to Leeds after that. And then obviously once you go back to Championship, I know there's stories of people coming out of Championship going up, but very rare do you go back down and then come back up there. It's quite rare. A bit more now than then. So once I were down. So when I went down Championship, the first year, I guess it was a bit of an identity crisis because I just had no control. Like there was no way of, no matter what I wanted to do, there was just no chance to even prove myself, or I felt to even get a crack. So then that felt like that were gone. Then I want a right nice person to be around because I was being so my missus, we'd had a separation. It just felt like everything was going downhill. Weirdly enough, I started comfort eating. I ballooned in size, and like you say, banter, because I'm not telling any lads that I've got this fucking weird issue. People, I would put loads of weight on. They were quite funny, actually. I think there were a photo of, I don't know if it were someone had put someone's, like a picture of someone's head inside of my belly, because it was that big. I was like George Rose. I'd gone that big. And it was just all going downhill that year. And then I got in an altercation on a night out with some doormen, which Keith rescued me from really, actually picked me up and got me out of there. And then I got locked up. I'd smashed all like a door in. I broke my foot, my heel really bad. And then everything was just going wrong, like everything, just like, obviously, because I told you about my uncle. So going into a police cell to people, that happens to lads all the time. It's not a big thing. But to me, it was like the worst thing that could ever happen in my life because of where my dad's family had all been. My dad comes from a very rough family where he'd never gone down that route. And he'd worked his ass off, brought 2 kids up, got himself a good building company. And I'm having to ring him saying, I need you to come pick me up. I've been put in Halifax cells. I've caused a lot of havoc. So that for me, that was the downside. It wasn't about, oh, look at me, I've been in a police cell. It's just something. No, it was a real like disrespect I felt on my old man because of everything, the way he brought us up as values, and then to lose my head like that, cause some havoc. And then I broke my heel in the process, and I had to go explain to lads who weren't asked, who were more shocked that Ambler doing that. Because you're talking about Ambler don't really go out drinking or don't really go out doing that, and then he's 80 Jaegers deep, smashing up nightclubs and beating up doormen. So they were all sort of laughed it off, which were good. But because they couldn't find a crack in my heel, no one ever told him on this, because they couldn't find a crack in my heel, a break, you get the usual that people think you're being soft, don't you? So they acupunctured it, and I ended up playing on tramadol. And I played for weeks and weeks. And then I think the swelling must have gone down a little bit. But I just couldn't after every game, I had to go back on crutches. Couldn't ever put weight on it. Anyway, I went to doctors one time. There was like a crack, and it wasn't an airline, it was like massive. And the doctor at the time said the X-ray machine didn't show it because we got in this MRI. You can see it clear as day. Usually I'd put in a boot, but you've been playing for 6 weeks, so you might as well finish season off. And obviously, I'd put weight on. My whole life just felt like it was going down. And then me and my missus got back together. My life started picking back up. Not really to do with her, but just where I'd got my mind to. I'd started training more physically, mentally. This was at the World Cup now. So World Cup, I got dropped at the first game, and I'd never been dropped for Ireland. But that's when I knew, fucking hell, you've been dropped for Ireland. Don't get me wrong, that year they were full of quality players. They were like Brett White, Pat Richards, but he dropped me to 18 man. And then I played the week after, and I thought, fucking hell, like, you're playing with all these. Because you have that self-doubt. I did a year in Championship. I felt like I was shit. And then I ended up being our best player that first game. So I thought, actually, mixing with all these boys, he must not be shit. So then that's when that self-belief came back. Me and Mrs. got pregnant. She got declared critically ill after 6 months of being pregnant. She had an asthma attack. And it just felt like life just kept throwing stuff at me. But with the way I developed my mindset, I just kept that smile on my face, being the guy I was. So people don't know like what goes on behind the scenes a lot, do they?
No, they don't, mate. And you know what? Like, listening to you there, and there'll be people who listen to this and think, well, comfort eating, you know what? But for you, that can, because I know what a rugby environment is like, and I was talking about, we're calling it banter, but sometimes it goes well above banter. It's basically, it can become verbal abuse or bullying to some extent. And that's not me being soft. I'm not a soft person, and I can stand up for myself. And I'm talking about some of the things I've said to people as well, where I can look back and I can cringe and think, that's a bit. I was being a bit of a bully there, but not intentionally being, but on self-reflection, think that was too harsh, the things that I said. But I know that lads who struggle with the weight, it's easy to give them shit and say, oh, you're not trying, or, you're coming in and you're doing your body fats and you say you're dieting, but your body fats have gone up, you're taking piss out at team. But yeah, it's now where we're sort of saying, well, hang on a minute, is there an underlying issue here? Is there like a psychological issue to this? Is there something going on in his life? And I think we are. As a sport, rugby league's getting a lot better at this. We're at the forefront for mental health for me, rugby league. And there's a lot of players coming forward about it now. But as coaches as well, we're sort of recognising that there could be a psychological issue here. This doesn't necessarily is just a greedy pig when he goes home and has, a family bag of quavers or something.
Yeah.
There could be something psychological there.
100%. And I think I like the way you framed it, psychological rather than, because I wouldn't say that mine were a mental health problem. I wasn't like low like that. I was just generally just down about everything that were going on. I think we're quite easily too quick to say, oh, someone's depressed or anxious out of it. But actually, just some psychologically, I probably never dealt with a lot of stuff like that. Because things have gone my way, it probably masks a lot of stuff growing up and the way I was. I often talk about the mental health side of stuff, but like I've been an entrepreneur since being 8 years old. I've always had something going. So I've always been very busy, very, very busy about everything, just where my mind works. Nowadays, it probably be classed as being ADHD because it's just constantly bang, bang, bang. And it's helped me, really, business-wise.
So do you think that was masking some of the feelings? Do you think you was trying to sort of get this, this sort of persona because of some of the emotions you may be carrying around? Do you think you was trying to mask that with staying busy and concentrating on other areas?
Probably, yeah, and never giving yourself time just to sit and be. And I think a lot of human beings are afraid. And I've done a lot of work, myself. I've done a lot of work myself. Continue to do in a good way to constantly develop myself. Weird stuff. I do really weird stuff like that challenge at weekend. I know a lot of people did it for charity. I didn't. I just did it because for me, I like doing weird shit. Like I'll just go run 60k on a random day just because that's what I like to do. It's my way of testing myself. Or go for a really cold water swim. I know people do it in all like wetsuits and make it look professional. I just dive in. I just want to see what I'm capable of in my head. And this is where I've become a lot different. When I played rugby, there were a lot of them stuff in there, but probably didn't get a chance to myself excel because maybe some of the stuff that I'd maybe never really dealt with. Because like you say, I was biggest on. I always have a bit of fun with some of Rhino's boys because there was one year where I won the bleep test, but I was also the fattest player on the team. So that's why I've always been quite fit, but I've also always been fat. So that's one. But yeah, I think psychologically probably masked some of it, and then it was difficult. You come down to a championship with a bit of a tag anyway, especially at Halifax. He'd come home from Leeds, who were world champions at that time. So you're a bit of a thing there. Probably that first a few months, I rode that year out, and then that year after, it just went to shit. And I know everyone has their own stories, don't they? And I believe that everyone has a story, and some people's are a lot worse than others. And for me, it's not about a sob story or being a victim, because I wouldn't change anything really. But we talk about rugby banter. One story always stands out for me. I won't say what player it is because it probably would hurt the guy's feelings now. But I probably, it probably wouldn't, because rugby players, it probably wouldn't. My brother-in-law killed himself, and I missed the Tuesday session because that was the day he did it. I went back to training on the Thursday, got a shower after training. A few of us left in change room, and one person, why? I see a lot of stuff on Twitter at the minute, and it's by rugby players where they say that everyone's entitled to an opinion, right? Agreed, but not everyone's entitled to express their opinion if it's going to be detrimental to someone else. So this guy decided to tell me when I'm 48 hours out, and he has no idea, just to him, his brother-in-law's killed himself. Not that it's my son's favourite person in the world, not that it's my wife's little brother, or my family's not that he were a good friend of mine at my house a weekend, or that he's left the door. There was none of that. And he decided to say to me, I think it's selfish, mate, suicide. And I was like, right. And I remember thinking to myself, is he really just fucking had audacity just to say that now? And I didn't even get mad. I was just like, as if I'm still dealing in this environment, as if that type of stuff still goes on. Someone you think to say, if that's my opinion, that's fine. I'll even say shit behind his back, but some people would say, oh, fair play on him fronting it up, but I was 48 hours out, of this news, which broke my family to bits. Beyond belief, there's no pain like losing someone to suicide, because there's just complete devastation that's left. And for someone to say that, I was just like, And another lads were like, yeah, I agree. And we were like, one of them like, oh, my friend were Chris Kendall, do you know who died? It was Chris Kendall, wasn't it? Who died by
Chris, yeah.
Chris, and you know, and I thought it was something, and I'm like, fucking hell, it's not even your place to say. Like, you have no idea. Like, you know, you're not even educated on this. So, but very opinionated rugby players, aren't they?
At Get a Tax Rebate, we make it easy for you or your business to claim back thousands of pounds in tax. Most people, like Jane and Philip, don't realise that they are owed money from HMRC, so they never claim. All you need to do is fill out a simple form on our website and we'll do the rest. It's that simple. We've also helped business owners claim back millions of pounds in research and development R&D tax credits. So if you're working in a business or own one, contact us today to see if we can help you claim back tax and improve your cash flow. Get a Tax Rebate, your tax refund concierge.
$18.95 Sports and State of Mind, the ultimate lineup.
Macy Vienna Aesthetics based in Wigan. For all your wrinkle treatments, dermal fillers, lip enhancement, energy boost injections, immune boost injections. Please visit us on Facebook or Instagram at Macy Vienna Aesthetics.
CDX Security, proudly supporting rugby league.
Yeah, and do you know what? I saw something, and I think it was yesterday actually, and it said what people need to realise is that their opinion is not fact, and that is the crux of it. And going back to studying at uni, one of the greatest skills that I had was that I had opinions about everything in sports and fitness until I went to my degree, because a lot of my opinions were actually bullshit. So even though I had all these opinions about what I felt was right, when I actually looked at the research and the statistics, I was actually proven wrong. Yeah. So one of the biggest skills that I learned at going to uni, and this is why I'm really pleased that I did what I did at uni, is because I was able to go away, search for statistics and facts, and see if what I feel is right is actually the truth scientifically. And there's a lot of people who have got opinions on mental health who, again, it's their opinion. They don't look at the research. They don't look at what's going on behind the scenes and what people are finding out about different personalities within it. It's still just sometimes suck it up and get on with it. And, you know, like I say, everyone's got their opinion. Have an opinion, but you don't need to express it, you know, and that is the downside to
social media.
Social media, you know, when people have constantly putting their opinion on there and setting it as fact, and it's like,
and then when they've got people who are like them, who then believe them, and like, yeah, so like, you know, well, at one club we had a lot of people who were like Tommy Robinson fans. So you can imagine like some of the comments that got made and how they were supporting of that type of stuff. But then that becomes quite an opinion that, you know, of their opinions. And when you're completely opposite to that, you become like averse to it, don't you? And it becomes a little bit, you know.
Well, your classic saying is, if, for example, a rugby team is performing bad, you can speak to one of the fans outside at ground and they're pissed off because your team's been beat. And if there's a constant run of bad performances, you'll speak to a fan, and it might be at a fans forum, it might be at a charity event, it might be outside the stadium, and they'll say, everybody wants him sacked. And you go, not everybody wants him sacked. What you're saying is you want him sacked, and a number of people sat round you want him sacked, not everybody. And they sort of umbrella everybody into this term and make their opinion a fact because they think everybody else thinks the same thing, and it's just total bullshit. But just going back to your brother-in-law there, Andy, because obviously it's a very poignant moment in your life as well, because it was the creation of Andy Man's Club, which is doing some great work at the moment. But can you fill us in on the backstory towards that for people who don't know?
Yeah, so I think what a lot most people won't know is just before Andy died, like literally just before, there'd been all this stuff happen. Like even that, like I said a minute ago, Miss had an asthma attack and we're literally intensive care. It was going either way, 5-minute window. So once she got out of hospital, I'd literally got myself, I'm telling you this for a reason, to a place where like nothing I felt could affect me. Like I went to training, I were on it. Like we're probably going to be my best season ever. Like where we'd started pre-season games, how fittest I'd been mentally. It didn't matter what anyone said. Like even like the banter, like people just stopped saying stuff because it was just like this guy's fucking switched on. Like he's, you know, I used to have a bit of a joke like bulletproof. It don't matter what anyone says. Like I'm just going to nail it. So then when that morning came, when me and Alfie are going to a rugby camp, now we're going to coach at this rugby camp, and my phone rang into my mother-in-law. I probably couldn't expect what we're about to get called because 40 hours previously, Andy were at my house, laughing and joking, having a bit of fun about his ex-missus and what she'd been saying, and also about wanting to buy an house. And we were going to buy an house, and we were going to help him. We'd bought a couple, and we were going to help him look into it on the Wednesday when kids weren't there. Next day, gets up, goes watch his whole football team play football. They convince him to get his boots on, so he ends up playing. Gets his daughter that afternoon, goes to play gym with my missus and his sister and the kids and my kids, and then they all go Sunday night like we always do at my mother-in-law's house. Next morning, gets up as normal, goes to work, so goes back to his mum, never comes home that night, and then he's found dead in woods Tuesday morning. That's when I got a phone call just saying basically our Andrew's dead, screaming our Andrew's dead. So at the time I didn't know what to do, dropped Alfie off at the ground, shot up to house, yeah, and it was like nothing I'd ever experienced. But I developed a theory through all this stuff I've been through when you're talking about can control and can't control. And I took it one step further about, I believe that we have victim mode, don't we? Like there's why me, but then there's also what's next. So I just truly live by this fact of when something happens, what can I do about it? So what's next? What are you going to do about it, Luke? So when she told me that theory came straight up and like, she can't tell anyone about this again. This is her son. Like you need to tell everyone. So it was like next minute, my missus is through the door. I've got to sit her down, explain her little brother's killed himself. All these really little things that people are really like, you know what? And it's really only coming to me now speaking to you because I don't often talk that much about rugby. But like even like ringing the coach, you know, as if that were even a fucking big deal. Now looking back, mate, I'm not going to be able to make training, Matt. My brother-in-law killed himself. Like even having to do that, having to tell everyone. Then you're having to tell like his best friends because it's social media. It can get out. His missus or his ex-missus. You're having to tell. I had to go pick his car up from where I'd left it because it was left nearby. And see like the fucking receipt from when he'd been and bought his rope and all sorts of shit. Like his last meal, like seeing his McDonald's meal he'd been and bought in an hour before he was last seen online on WhatsApp. All these weird little things that, you know, like playing his car came on the last song he was listening to on radio. Stuff that I've never actually, even now speaking to you, because I don't go into this much detail, I've never even spoke about it. All these little things. But then going to my mum's house, where my little boy Alfie was now, and I'm going to tell him what single hardest thing I've ever done, because I always say the screeching which he let out as a 6-year-old boy will live with me forever. And I tell that all the time, that one saying, because it's fucking real and it's raw. Like the screech were unbearable. Like he was just broken. He was broken. His favourite person in the whole world were gone. And there was nothing we could do about it. And that's when the what's next theory came. That I said literally 4 days later, I said to Mrs., he can't die in vain. Like we've got to do something here. You know, at that point, there was no suicide, the single biggest killer of 45. No one were talking about that then. So I said, we need to do something. So approached my mother-in-law 3 months after we wanted to let the dust settle, obviously, because it were horrendous. Everyone's still dealing with coroners and all sorts of stuff. So when we went to a family wedding, I approached her and I asked her, and she said, yeah, we came up with this name. And there's a real unique reason why it's called Andy's Man Club, actually. Because it was going to be called, I wanted to call it something stupid like Andy Roberts Coffee Club or Movement with men capitals in middle. They were names. And then my mother-in-law said she didn't like it. And what many people won't know is on a Saturday morning, me, Keith, my dad, my best mate Brett, and a couple of us, we used to have this thing called Man Club, where no one else were allowed to go, like women, daughters or things. We just all used to go Greasy Spoon, called Drake's, Nero's, and if Keith had been working all week or whatever, and I was, we just make sure that Saturday morning we got together and we all just talk shit. Just what we did most Saturdays. Call it, we just say, I'm going man club Saturday. So when she'd gone away, she'd thought like an acronym with the word Andy's, and I'd just come and said, listen, I've been thinking man club, it should make sense. So we came up with Andy's man club, and then first night, like 9 men turned up, week after 15 men turned up, and then obviously the boom for everything was when I took that selfie with that OK sign. And I came up with this idea that we could get men talking. No one was talking. It wasn't a big thing, suicide, mental health, no one was speaking about it at that point 4 years ago, or not in my circles or what I was seeing. There was some stuff happening with rugby, with State of Mind, which I thought were great, but they were not. Andy didn't play rugby, so I didn't think it was relevant. So I just took a selfie with an OK sign. I said, tag 5 people that know it's okay to talk, and obviously it just boomed beyond belief. I think within 4 weeks, 100 million people it had either reached or had participated. It were like trending #1 in the world at one point on Twitter and Instagram. And it just went...
you had like people like Ricky Gervais doing the Andy Man sign and like world famous people who were putting it out there on Twitter, didn't you?
Oh, mate, there were that. And then I were getting phone calls off Instagram himself asking if we could do pieces with them. I got invited to an event with William, Kate and Harry, and then I got to go to Prince Charles's house, sat in his front room. All this shit, none of it means anything. I've had to letters off Theresa May. Got invited down to Theresa May's house, I had to turn her down. My little joke is that I had to turn her down because I was climbing Kilimanjaro. Not many people can say they've turned Prime Minister down, can they? But I couldn't go to her house. I got invited to 10 Downing Street. I say their house like it's her house, but all this mad shit, mate, and none of it has ever bothered me. Like the room I'm in now, like I'm down at our AMC office for can see, and we've got all these little awards here, and anyone who follows me or my team know that shit never. If we win any awards and it's on a Saturday, Monday they know that he's back to business. They've always known that. Whether we've done Talk Sport and we've got a regular feature on Sky or whatever, they know that applaud on Friday because Monday he will challenge us to get straight back after it because guys are still killing themselves. It's been my theory all along. The only thing I've ever thought that we're good about winning an award or going to Prince Charles is that people hear about it. So by them hearing about it, it might make them look more into Andy's Man Club. And that one man as our tagline is might attend one of our groups. And that's been the theory from day one. And that's how I operate as a leader with my people, our organisation, is that we don't let success go to his head. The Will Smith saying that I love and I've drove it in this organisation from day one is we don't let success go to his head, we don't let failure go to his heart. And I've just driven that values and beliefs from top to bottom, from our trustees, and I don't say down because across to our staff, across to our facilitators and even to our users, that it's all about the experience that one man gets when he does reach out. Because it's okay everyone doing campaigning and saying talk about it, but when someone does have the knackers and the courage to come and talk about it, that environment's got to be right. And that's what I made a promise on Twitter, and it's probably long gone now, but I said it's okay us saying it's okay to talk, but Andy's Man Club will give every man a platform to do so as well. And we went into lockdown with 28 groups where men could speak, with 2 full-time and 1 part-time staff, and we're coming out of lockdown and what's been very tough financially and everything for everyone. But we knew we needed how tough it's going to be. We've invested now everything we've got to have 7 full-time staff and 41 groups, so and growing. So we know that we've got to keep finding that one man, so that ultimately it's never about the man. It sounds quite selfish, this. It's not the man that drives me. It's the kid at home that drives me. It's the wife. So I recently went to a group in Manchester, and it's really good because you wear a mask now. Because when I do go, obviously, people have a real affiliation that this group saved their life. So obviously the founder then played a big part in that, if not the part. So, and I've always played that down. It's not about me. It never has been. It never will be. So I like going now in a mask and an hat because no one recognises you. One of the facilitators did it at Manchester, and one of the users then clocked on, and he was telling me how the group had saved his life. And this is a saying you hear a lot, but there was something quite unique about this. That when I went to leave, he asked if I could wait a minute, and he pulled his wife up on FaceTime, and his wife was there, And I thought, oh, he hadn't told her. She's ringing her up. So she looked at me and I thought she hadn't recognised me anyway. So it was a bit awkward. So I went, you all right? And she went, hiya. And it went really quiet. And I went, it's put us on the spot here, isn't it? It's a bit awkward. And she went, no, it's not that. And I went, oh, what is it? And she just burst out crying, like in tears. And I said, oh, what's wrong? What's wrong? She says, without your club, I don't have an husband. So, like, thank you so much. And when I saw the emotion come out of her and what that meant to her, that just gave me another energy. On the school run, when we went out of this first lockdown, a guy beelined for me. I thought he was coming to start on me when he was walking at me. And he just says, are you involved? You're involved with Andy's Man Club, right? I said, no, not really, mate. Like, I always do stuff like that for some reason. He went, no, I know you are. I just want to say that I want to drop my daughter off if it wasn't for you. She didn't have a dad if it's not for you. And that, we're like, fucking hell. Like, when you hear it like that, and it's okay when you hear it in the group, oh, like, this group saved my life, or we get a message. And I'm not saying it's not powerful, but you're getting hundreds of guys messaging this weekly. But when you see a guy actually drop his kid at school, or you actually see his wife say that to you, that's when you know that, like, this is the real fucking deal.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff, that, and that's. I get what you're saying. That feeling of helping someone. Well, not helping someone, it's saving someone's life, but it's giving somebody else their dad, their son. Do you know? You're saving lives, and there's no price you can put on that. No. Luke, I'll openly admit that I have been financially driven since a very young age. I seen my mum working 2 or 3 jobs, hardly have any money as we was growing up, and like try and give us everything at Christmas and birthdays and whatnot. I seen my dad grow up with hardly anything. And I always wanted money financially. I was driven because I thought, I don't want to be like that. I just don't want to. I want to. But now I'm older and I've experienced money. I know that for me, this is not for everybody, but this for me, it doesn't make me happy. It doesn't make me happy. And I've done that for so long, chased money thinking it's going to make me happy and I'm going to get. And this is one of the reasons that I'm getting into the counselling side now, and I'm doing a bit of work with some people. I have been for a number of years now, and I do work with it. And that sense of achievement, it's such a powerful thing. You cannot put a price on that. And I think some people miss out on what they can experience by helping others instead of just. We're quite, not everybody, but we're quite a selfish generation, aren't we, in some respects?
It's gone, and that's the other reason why Andy's Man Club works, because it's just reconnecting people, like its root cause, like where people used to go around to a local village and, your local little village or town, go to bakers and greengrocers. A lot of that's gone, and everything's fast now. So a lot of those things have lost, and people are selfish. It is very self-entitled now. There's so many negative traits that were developed through the speeding up of society. From Iowa, people getting, like you say, money driven, and everyone's got a hope now that they can all be multimillionaires, and social media gives you a view into other people's lives and everything you don't have, and people want to drive to be that. And I think people should want to be the best version of themselves in whatever that entails. I think any business I've ever had, it's always been like purpose over profit. Even my speaking career or my workshops, the journals, it's purpose over profit. But obviously also for me, like being an entrepreneur since I was 8 years old, there's different types of entrepreneurs. You can have like social entrepreneurs, they call them, where it's about like creating impact. So obviously there's one side, this where people get confused with what I do. So I earn nothing from Andy's Man Club. As a chair of an organisation, which I am, you're not physically allowed to earn money anyway. You're governed by 2 bodies, Companies House and Charity Commission. So, like, there'd be a really fucked up flaw in system if I was somehow siphoning money off it, right? But also what people don't understand is I have earned more money, nothing to do with Andy's Man Club, than I did in rugby, but nothing to do with Andy's Man Club. Actually, where I'd say Andy's Man Club has helped is 2 ways. One would be the fact Andy died and I says, I will never do anything that don't make me happy anymore, which is why I quit rugby, because I was no longer fulfilled by it. I felt more compelled to do my businesses and that. So that was one way. And the other one is when you can see what you can build, and you realise that what this requires of you time-wise. I need to earn as much as I can in the time I am going to work, so that I can give my 40, 50 hours a week or whatever I give to AMC for free. So that's how I view it now. So, and you could look at it in a sense of, I followed Tony Robbins for years. The stuff, the way he does it, probably it's Americanized, it's not for everyone. But if you look at the root cause of what he's saying is that he does all his work to earn as much money to be able to feed people. So me personally, I do as much of my business as I can, so I can sit in this office on a Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday with these, knowing that I can be here and not have to worry about my kids not getting fed. Because I don't ever, life would have been a lot easier for me if I'd never said that I don't want to work for it, and I would have just worked for AMC. Life would have been a lot easier. But I never wanted that. I never wanted to work for it because it means too much to me to put a price on it. But I heard a saying weirdly today, and this sums up AMC for me. There's a lot of talk about accountability. Right? There's a guy called Jocko Wilco. He's an ex. Do you know what I mean?
I know him. Yeah, I've heard of him. The 5 a.m. guy.
The 5 a.m. guy. Or might even be 4 a.m. guy. Might I think he's the.
Oh, is he 4 a.m.?
He's somewhat daft. But he was talking about there's a big thing in leadership about accountability. He said, but accountability is just actually a tool. He said, actually, if you need to keep your staff or your, in his terms, army, his comrades accountable, then he's failed as a leader. Because as a good leader, and this is just something, it just hit me like a light bulb today. He said, a good leader as staff or people will keep themselves accountable. And you can then sit back and watch them from an overview and only step in when shit hits the fan. Or when you're working on a new strategy. And that hit me like a fucking brick today, because I'm like, shit, that's like where we are now. Like, it's been so much groundwork, that actually now the culture in this place is like second to none. Like, there's no culture in my eyes in an organisation like it, with the closeness, how everyone is. That now, for me, it's like, even with us trustees now, there's not much to talk about as trustees because the ship's running itself now. It's took years to get here, but everyone has bought into what we call that one-man experience, which means that whether you're a staff member or you're a facilitator, is that when a guy walks through that door, does he get made to feel how you got made to feel? And the reason why we say how you got made to feel is there's a reason that you came back and became a facilitator and or then got made a staff member, because that group made you feel a certain way. From the guy on the door who says, "Hey mate, you looking for Andy's Man Club?" to the guy who'll give you your first coffee or said, "Do you want a biscuit with your brew, mate, or sugar in your tea?" to when the facilitator sat you down, he says, "If you give us a minute, lads, we'll be starting, but here's rules." Like, and everyone in that group made you feel special, which kept you from killing yourself, which is why you're still here today. So anyone who walks through that door needs to get that same experience. So that for me now, it has developed. I am still only, when I look at it, sometimes I think, I'm still only young and I'm still, very mature in a lot of ways. So as a 31-year-old leader of an organisation this big now, there's so much I've still got to learn, and that's what I think my biggest asset is. And what I could give to anyone else is like, never stop learning. I don't even mean just through reading. I mean through listening to people, through sponging. Like I don't mean sponging off like mum or dad. I mean just I even listen to like my old man who might be talking about an issue in his business, or a friend in a different organisation. I think, what can I learn from what they're doing wrong there or what they're doing right there, and take that into here to create a better culture. And I think if you get that right, whether it's a business, whether it's your own business, your own life, if you're constantly like challenging the status quo and pushing yourself just to test those little, get those little wins, I think everything else just sort of falls into place.
Do you know what? You just stole my word there, because I was just going to say you sound like you're a sponge. And I didn't mean a sponge. I meant a sponge, but you sound like everything you're saying about the leadership. One thing what really stuck out for me earlier is when you said filtering across, do you know what I mean, and not filtering it down. And that for me is a big, to have that sort of outlook is as someone who is at the top, is putting everyone on the same level. I think there's a great deal of humility in that, to be able to say that and to show that. But I think ultimately it's it's a great trait to have, because for your other employees to see them on the same level as you, as everybody on this level, and everybody buying into the same dream, I think that's what creates a great environment.
Well, it's not really a funny story, but I hate it because of how I am when people talk about where I am now as a headquarters, like if we make a decision here that some people don't like every decision you make. You're never going to make everyone happy. That's one thing you've got to accept when you're a leader in anything or you're doing anything. You got to accept that like not everyone's going to be happy. But something happened over Christmas, and we did a really nice thing that we're going to get our staff in over on bank holiday. We give them a different day off, so they come in and they'd set up the online, so we could still have at least online running over Christmas. Some lads weren't happy with how it went because they didn't get their local link, and we just tried doing the right thing. Anyway, so they had a bit of negativity when they went back in their group, and it were like, they must have gone to this group one day and been bagging everything, the way the headquarters is doing stuff. Just these two guys at one group bagging stuff, and they were like as if they were talking about Richard Branson, right? I know you joked about that. The Richard Branson sat up there, he's making decisions, he's never going to hear what we're saying, so we're just going to talk a lot of shit. And they weren't necessarily naming me, but they were like naming the institution, as daft as it sounds. So I just said to one of our staff members, get them on a call with me. So they obviously get an email, these two guys, Luke would like to have a call with you if you're happy. So obviously they're then really shocked out. They're like, shit. So I've jumped on, I'm just sat in my bed at home. I'm like, all right, boys. Yeah. I says, obviously there's a few things we need to iron out. Apparently you've got an issue with this. No. I think, and I says, no, let's just iron it out now, because where I am is I don't like bullshit. I prefer we just iron it out. Everyone's cool then. That group that you're on about, that you're passionate about, runs better, and I aren't getting people having headaches. So anyway, the guy said something great, and he said, I just find it really like humbling that the guy who's meant to be at top would take time to come during the middle of a day and speak to what you just class as two users of a group. I said, you're not two users of a group, like you're as important as anyone else in this organisation, because everyone is equal. Like I said, I know when he's had a problem that a trustee came to a group and didn't advertise himself as a trustee. But I said, why would he when he's just like you? He's just a guy who walks through the door. And they were at first couldn't get that concept round that everyone is equal. But I think when people do, I think that your environment thrives.
Yeah, no, mate. That, like I said, it's a great quality to have, and looked at a lot of stuff over my time in leadership. I've looked at more leadership stuff, and how organisations have gone and listened to some of the, like I like Gary Vaynerchuk, mate. I like listening to him, and now what he says on social media, and if he does run his business as he says he does. But I think like he'd be a great boss to work for, because he seems to have everyone on the same level, and he doesn't expect his employees to work as hard as him because it's his business, etc., etc. And I know that some bosses want to sit at home and do fuck all and get their employees to do everything, and then they go home when they're not working hard. But I've looked a lot at leadership, and I just think it's a good quality that you've got there. And it's no surprise to me that, that Andy Mann's club is thriving, really. But just going into, because it ties in with the Andy Mann's club as well, you've got your B Journal as well. So just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I got invited to speak to some prison governors 3 years ago now. Probably didn't know what I was going into when I did this. I just got asked to go and just do a bit of a presentation. So I did that. But these prison governors really liked my approach, because there were no bullshit. I was there with like head of NHS, head of Ombudsman, head of Public Health England, and then there was just me. This guy who was still playing rugby at the time, just like, in my eyes, just a normal bloke. Anyway, I hit him with something. We got asked a question. And I started going around these prisons. And in coaching, journaling's a big thing. Like when people do coaching or counselling, getting people to journal is a big thing. So I just had like 6 questions that I used to give prisoners, mainly really violent prisoners who were in segregation. So it was quite a mad journey, mate. I did 54 prisons in 18 months and still go it like, just bang. Like, and you're not just talking like, I'd go in and just like do a rugby program with prisons, or go into meet them at visitors hall. Like, there's not a place in a prison that I haven't been. So like I'd be sat in a seg unit. You know what a seg unit is?
segregation unit. Yeah,
yeah. So I'd be sat in there.
Not that I've been in one.
Yeah, I'd be sat in there with a guy who's maybe meant to be on a 2-man unlock, who they categorise as their most high risk in terms of violence in that prison. So then suddenly, like, I became this prison guru, like, prisons would be getting in to do like programs with all their staff, and there'd be all these coaching. So there was one prisoner once, I gave him these 6 questions. It was so simple: today's goals, affirmations, and what you're grateful for today. And I said, every day I want you to write down what went well today. Sorry, what could you improve today? What went well today? And then write me a conclusion. But the biggest thing I want you to do is I want you to rate your day out of 10. Right? And this was more for his behaviour at the time, and his mindset, and his well-being. So I wanted to see what he did on a day that was more than a 6. That was it. So after the first month, we went in and I showed him, right, this is every day you get above a 6. And he'd write stuff down, which were like nothing I've ever seen before. Like, really, like wrote down exactly what we were thinking. Like, guard's winding me up today. I want to have a roll around with him. I know I'd lever him. If he continues to push me buttons, he's going to get it. But then he started saying stuff like, he'd write that again, but he'd put, but I know the consequences if I do. So he started to notice himself and his behaviour and what would happen. So then it'd be stuff like, the guy didn't get into me today because I allowed him to. I know the end goal, stuff like that. Anyway, after 2 months, this guy got moved out of second, even got Cat C, got shipped out because he was so impressed with his behaviour. So the governor came to me and said, I don't know what you did with him, but wow. So then I brought out the BU journal off the back of it, off literally thinking, and it's so simple. It's literally like a notebook, right? We've got him in office here, I ain't done this on purpose. It's literally like a notebook, 6 questions, you turn it over, there's a bit you can offload and a bit you can write down what's next, right? And it was that simple. And I thought, they're just a notebook, I'll just take them into prisons. Well, I put them online thinking that, a couple might sell, and I think up to date, at one point we've done 6,500 units, and then we've just done another 800 or 1,000 last month. So the BU journals just went bang, to a surprise because they're so plain. And then we brought out the kids one, which 2 years ago I would say were a bit of a flop actually. And it was really annoyed me because if you see the difference in terms of like design and how much effort went into it, just didn't get it in front of the right doors, probably didn't put the right focus in. Anyway, the kids journal now got picked up by a lady at CAMS. So you'll know what CAMS is.
CAMS, yeah.
Yeah, children and
adolescents, yeah.
Yeah, mental health services. They've took it. And because they've took it, they are blown away by the content of it. And they've actually said that now that it's going to be used as an actual proper out-and-out intervention for their whole service. But because they've done it, now I've got waiting lists of CAMS to try to get hold of them. Plus, schools taking them. And mate, this is definitely purpose over profit. Like, these go to schools, like if school takes over 100, they get them at $3.95 each. Like, that's nothing. Like the retail at a tenner. So CAM said that they've looked online and they couldn't find a journal, even when they spoke to people, under £10. So like, you see that the idea of this is to get it in as many kids' hands as possible. The beautiful thing is one of the schools that's took it is my kids' school, and they've actually now implemented it into the curriculum. So every day my little lad comes home and my daughter and says that every day at 2:30 they've got to fill it in. To a point now where my little lad said the kids are putting their hand up and saying, "Miss, can we do his journals now?" And kids are learning to express themselves. And if all it is one page, they have 3 questions every day. They've got to write a buzzword down. So the buzzword is like confident. Like, so in front of a word, in front of a book, they've got buzzwords. There's like 100 different words that they could sum up the day. From patient, relaxed, original, forgiving, grateful, amazing, brave. And then they just write down a mood board at the end of the day. And it's literally, how's your day been? And you can draw on a B, a smiley face, an upset, and angry. And all it does is it just tracks trends. Same with the adult journal. The adult journal is exactly the same. You can track trends. People just don't, those who haven't got the best out of that journals because they haven't done it properly, as in they're committed to it. But it's like a training program, mate. You've trained enough people physically to know that if someone buys into a training program, it will work regardless of what it is. But the only thing that determines a world-class program is whether someone gives it world-class effort.
Yeah, 100%.
That's simple. And that's like the journal. It's simple because if you wake up every day and write down 2 or 3 goals and then go do them, you write down what you are grateful for. And I'm not on about just writing down my kids. No, but like, what was it about something your kids did that made you feel that good? What was it that actually made you feel blessed to be alive? And then one little affirmation, so one intention that you're going to set your day. And then you can honestly make yourself accountable by analysing your day. You'll suddenly start to see trends and you'll change your behaviours to start achieving what you want to achieve. And that's what that journal's about.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, lad. I think it's something that I encourage with my kids, you know, like the expressions of how they're feeling and that type of thing, because I'm just, you know, I've just been doing a lot of reading over the last couple of weeks about the psychology of things and the mental health and stuff. And some kids are really resilient, but this is for the kids what are not resilient and they can't bounce back. And, you know, this stuff, it's not for everybody, is it? You know, some kids you can throw loads of shit at them and they just boom, and they just bounce it off them. And I always say I was emotionally just not physically. I was quite strong as a kid. I played rugby, I did boxing, I did Thai boxing, I was swimming, everything. Physically, I was strong, but emotionally, I wasn't that strong. So for stuff like this to be available now, I'm a big advocate of it because I think I wish this would have been around when I was younger. And my kids, I can see traits in my kids that were in me when I was a kid. So this, I mean, I'll definitely be putting an order in, mate.
No, I'll send you, if you tell me your address after, I'll send you a couple of these.
No, I'll pay for them, mate. I don't want me sponging.
No, don't be silly.
But yeah, no, I'm a big advocate of it, mate. I think it's fantastic for the kids now to be able to express the feelings and and that social aspect of things, because I don't know what your kids are like, but mine are constantly on an iPad, they're on their Xboxes, and an element of that is down to me because sometimes it gives me an easier life and lets me get on with what I want to do. But the social aspect of communication is going with some of the kids, and I can see the effects that's having on mine. I can see the mood swings. I can see the low mood.
I've been, my missus will tell you, I'm a stickler for, when the last lockdown, technology probably didn't have to, but it played a part. I felt like it had to come in. They were sat around for 24 hours a day, weren't they? So little lad, to connect to his friends, went on Xbox. But I'm very strict with it, like really strict with how long they can go on it. I'm very blessed that my 6-year-old, she's 6 or 7, I think she's going to 7. She plays out every single night. So just tonight, she got home from school, straight out the door, knocked for all her friends, and I don't know if that's illegal right now, and she's been out on the street until literally her mum calls her in for tea, and she'll do that every single night now over summer till it goes dark. Like literally, we live on a little like a new build estate, so there's no through road. She'll play out from the minute she gets home till after. She might want to come in and have a little watch or something, but that's but it's quite funny because my little girl, I think, likes writing in hers, even though she's out playing. The little lad who's older, he's not game for it, right? He did at the beginning, but I think because his friends are doing it in class now, he's doing it. But what was so interesting is when we talk about resilience. Obviously, I told you that Alfie, who's now 11, is the 6-year-old boy. I was going to watch one of our staff do a talk, one of our presentations, and he said, "Oh, can I come with you?" Because he'd been with me all day. Because one at schooling days, I said, "Oh, come to work with me." So I brought him to do my stuff. We've done all sorts, and said, "I've got to drop you off home." And I go, "So why can't I come?" I said, "Well, come then." I thought, he's not yet. He doesn't know because he's been around it that long. So I said, "Right, come then." And I made a joke. I said, "What are you going to do? Say a few words?" He went, "I will do." Yeah. So then we started going over what he's going to say, and my mate who come with us, we're both like, "Wow." He remembered everything I've told you, but in more detail, like to the fact of when my phone rang, he remembers the look on my face. And he'd never heard me talk about this. He remembers the look on my face, even though he didn't know what were wrong. He knew. And he said these words. He says, "I always get excited," because he's my stepson. "I always get excited seeing Luke and my mum when they pull up at my nana's to pick me up. But if I knew then what they're about to tell me, I wouldn't have been excited." And he remembers, like, even down to me showing him the Lion King video. Anyway, he stands up at Land Rover. And I said to him just before we got there, I said, "When you open up to talk to him, just say, 'Hi, my name's Alfie.'" He went, "I know, my name's Alfie." I went, "Tell him you're a little bit nervous because it's your first time." He went, "I'm not nervous." And I went, "What?" He went, "I'm not nervous. Why would I be nervous?" I says, "Are you about to go talk?" He said, "No, I'll tell you what nervous is. Nervous is when you're playing in a concert at school and your drumstick breaks. and everyone's looking at you. That's nervous. And I went, right then, I thought, he'll crumble here. He's not going to back this up. Anyway, gets up. Neil, who's doing it, well, like obviously he's been at a group, he used the group, he then became a facilitator, just become a staff member, he lives and dies it, so he knows all the story. So he's like, listen lads, I've got a special guest today to tell you some of this, because he tells a little bit about, he starts with the kids, and he's like, no point me telling, he's got Alfie, so Alfie struts up to the front. Hi guys, as you can see, I'm on screen. My name's Alfie, I'm going to tell you a bit of a story. Anyway, he tells him his story, and then what does he end with? Now he ends something like, I'm telling you this because if you guys talk, maybe you'll still be here, because you'll be still here, because maybe if my Uncle Andy would have talked, he'd still be here. Boom, mic drop, walked off. So, talk about like knackers, like, but then at the same breath, because you talk about kids, like there's some stuff that he's still very mature at, like very mature, like, you know, sharing with his sister tonight, just his skateboard, he was crying, right? But then getting up and speaking to 8 big blokes at a Land Rover garage, bang, and I was like, shit, like, you can learn something from these kids, can't you? That like, it doesn't actually matter, does it?
Yeah, mate, it's a great story, that, as well. And do you know what I pick up from that as well is that we don't realise what kids see as well, do we?
Yes,
and what they remember. And this is my big thing now, is this is why we need kids to express if they are in a low mood. And you said, you know, depression gets thrown around a lot. And a lot of the time it's not actually depression, it's a low mood that they're in. And if they're in that low mood, they need to speak about it, because then it can develop into a form of depression or a mental illness. So that's why I like the talks that we're doing with Rugby League Kersey, because it's basically expressing if you're feeling like this and you can recognise it, there's a good chance it won't form into something more major. And then, you know, the pressure only gets harder as you get older, doesn't it? You know what I mean? You've got your financial, then you've got your family and everything else. The pressures can mount up even more then. No, mate, like I say, I think you're doing a great thing. You know, the journal, great idea. I'm all for that with kids. I'm a massive push. I push massively now for kids' mental health, because I just think they need a voice. The kids do need a voice. It's not making them soft, just asking them to speak. That's another thing that people say. You know, we're making kids soft. We're not making them soft by speaking. Actually making them tougher in my eyes.
100%. 100%. And I think that's, you know, it takes real strength to be vulnerable, doesn't it? It takes real strength.
Of course it does.
Where I think he's becoming soft is parenting. He's becoming soft, because you said it great yourself, and it was good that you said it how you said it, is we as parents now make easy decisions, but we know by making life easy now, it makes life hard later. Actually, if we make life a little bit harder now, so like actually we put our own phones down, which we're all guilty for, and our own lives, and do some stuff with them that we know is going to make life easier long term. But it's always that debate, innit? Easy now, hard now, you know? Yeah. And a big one is like parents now. When I was at school, you go to school and teacher tells you off, like it's a disrespect on your family, like your dad's going to be mad at you. Now, like teacher tells your kid off, like why are you picking on my kid?
Yeah, I know.
My kid, like he doesn't ever do all bad at home. Like you know he does. Or like you know, your kid swore at school today. No, you don't fucking swear at all. Like they swear back. No, clearly not. Like I think parenting's gone soft. You know, we don't set the right standards for his kids at times. My kid, he tells me all the time, you need to be more like other parents, you're too strict. I'm like, you won't be saying this in a few years. Trust me.
Yeah.
You'll thank me in a few years.
Yeah, 100%, mate, definitely. Some lads at gym were telling me over a week, go a bit easier on my lad because he did 9 reps instead of 10. And I went mad at him and said, don't you ever miss a rep out. Don't you ever cut a corner. 100%. You know, I'm massive on effort. You know, just put the effort in.
That's it, because you can never, no one can ever take your effort away from you, can they? No matter if like a boss doesn't like you, or a manager doesn't like you, or a teacher doesn't like you, like people can never take the effort, because you've still put that effort in regardless, haven't you? So like, just because you maybe didn't get quite the outcome, the efforts, I respect that, mate. I'm for that.
Yeah, Luke, that's brilliant, mate. It's been great to chat to you. It's been great, and like I said, mate, everything you're doing, not just in your business, but with the Handyman's Club and the B Journal and everything. It's been great listening to your story as well, you know, to get an insight into someone. That's why I love doing these podcasts, because you get that intimate feel with people, and, you know, it just give that backstory and the troubles people have been through and the good stuff, you know, and you've come through the other side. It's really inspiring, mate. It really is.
No, I appreciate that, man. It's been quality coming on and getting to know you, because obviously you see people in rugby and cross paths, but I think it's been quality, mate, and I hope the show keeps going from strength to strength, because I keep seeing it everywhere. So hopefully.
Cheers. Well, everyone always says, you know, I thought he was a knobhead before I spoke to you, and then when they speak to me, they say, but you're still a knobhead. So
I just remembered. We'll save my tales about Keith for part 2.
Therefore, yeah, that's an episode on itself.
Yeah, it certainly is.
I'm not telling what you was telling me on phone earlier in the week. Thanks a lot for that, Luke. Appreciate it, mate. It's been brilliant.
Quality, mate.